What does it mean to tell your own story when the world has decided it doesn't want to hear it? What does it cost personally, financially, spiritually to force truth onto a screen that which the entire industry was built to suppress? That question is at the center of what we'll be discussing today, and I think the question makes Oscar Micheaux one of the most important figures in American film history. Not just black film history, American history. Welcome back to Movies That Move We. I'm Nikkei, and today we're going to deep dive into one silent film from 1920 that was nearly lost forever, banned in multiple cities, and directly challenged the most successful films of the era. Today we're talking about Within Our Gates by Oscar Micheaux. Now, if you watched the episode last month, we covered Micheaux's background in depth. So we're not going to repeat that today, but there are two things that you need to keep on the sticky side of your brain before we can talk about this film. First, Lincoln Motion Picture Company. They wanted to adapt Micheaux's novel, The Homesteader, but they told him he couldn't direct it himself, so he started his own company. Just like that, he started the Micheaux Film and Book Company in 1918. He raised the money by selling shares directly to black farmers and community members. That independence is everything, and that's why this film exists at all. Second, and this is important, you cannot understand Within Our Gates without understanding what it was responding to. Birth of a Nation by W.D. Griffith, which came out in 1915. I'll make it plain. Technically innovative, cinematically influential, and deeply, devastatingly racist. It glorifies the KKK as heroes and portrays black men as animalistic and predatory. President Woodrow Wilson screened this at the White House. The NAACP tried to have it banned and failed. It became the highest grossing film of its era and was used as a Klan recruitment tool. Historians have linked it directly to the resurgence of Klan membership in the years that followed. This is what Oscar Micheaux was working against. Not just the images on a screen, but real world violence that those images enabled. Then comes 1919, the Red Summer. Race massacres across the country, white mobs attacking black neighborhoods, hundreds of African Americans killed. The country was burning. Within Our Gates is released January 1920. It is a direct answer, and it doesn't flinch. The version that we have today is incomplete. The film was believed to be entirely lost until 1993, when a print was discovered in a Spanish archive in Madrid. It was cataloged under its Spanish title, La Negra. What we have runs about 79 minutes, more than likely shorter than the original, and some of the intertitles have been reconstructed from the Spanish translation. So we're working with an important but still extraordinary artifact. The central character in this film is Sylvia Landry, played by Evelyn Pryor. If you don't know that name, we need to take a moment because she's one of the most important figures in this entire era of black film cinema. Some film historians credit her as the first black movie star in the modern sense. Someone with genuine screen presence, a recognizable name, and an audience that specifically wanted to see her. She and Micheaux had one of the great professional partnerships of American film history. She was his leading lady across multiple films. She was his instrument for showing the world what black women on screen could look like when somebody actually cared about their interiority. Tragically, she died in 1932 at just 36 years old due to complications following childbirth. Her daughter Eva survived. But black cinema lost one of its brightest lights far too soon. When you watch this film, know that you're watching someone at the height of her powers. Give her the attention she deserved. Now, back to the character that she played, Sylvia. She's educated, dignified, she's complex. She's exactly the kind of black protagonist that Hollywood simply was not putting on the screen. The story opens up with Sylvia in the North, caught in a messy romantic situation with a man named Conrad. He's engaged to someone else. A jealous woman, specifically her cousin named Alma, employs a petty criminal to interfere in Sylvia's life. Sylvia travels back to the South to raise money for a school, the Piney Wood School, which was serving black and poor children in the rural South. The school is actually based on a real institution, the Piney Woods Country Life School in Mississippi. She believes deeply in education as uplift. She secures a donation for the school from a white northern philanthropist named Alina Warwick. But the film's most devastating sequence comes through flashback. Sylvia's adoptive father, Jasper Landry, I'm gonna get this out, is a sharecropper falsely accused of murdering his white landowner, Griddlestone. In reality, Griddlestone was killed by his white neighbor. But in this America, a black man accused is a black man hunted. What follows is a lynching sequence. Jasper and his wife are killed by a white mob, and in the flashback, a young Sylvia is attacked by Griddlestone himself. It's clearly framed as an attempted sexual assault. And then, in a geniusly stunning narrative turn, he stops because he recognizes by a scar on her chest that she's his biological daughter. The woman he sees as less than human is his own child. The film ends with Sylvia back in the North. She's been shot, she recovers, and a doctor named Vivian who loves her is at her side, and they're united. It's more than a hopeful ending, it's a more hopeful ending than the film's brutality might suggest. Though that hope feels hard won, earned through an unflinching look at what black life in America actually looked like. Micheaux was working with real formal craft. This is not a rough or primitive film, even by 1920 standards. He uses close ups, especially on Prayer's face, to capture that emotion for a character that Hollywood typically keeps flat. The parallel ending during the lynching sequence mirrors a technique Griffith used in Birth of a Nation, cutting between locations to build tension. That segment is, in fact, very intense. But Micheaux completely flips the moral framework, where Griffith was using that technique to frame white women as needing protection and rescue from black men. Micheaux uses it to indict white violence against black people. He's using the master's tools deliberately. There are a number of themes to look at here. The first would be the counter narrative as a political act. Micheaux understood something that we now take for granted in media criticism. Representation is never neutral. Images teach people who is human and who's not considered human. They shape how communities see themselves and how they're seen by others. Birth of a Nation was actively harming Black Americans, not just offending them. The images in that film gave psychological permission for violence. They confirmed a worldview that said Black people were dangerous and subhuman. Micheaux, on the other hand, responds by creating images that insist on Black humanity in all of its complexity. Sylvia is not a saint. She's navigating a messy romantic situation at the film's opening. She's made compromises. She's fully human. And that full humanity is a political statement. The second theme is the intraracial debate. Here's something to miss on a casual watch. Micheaux is also engaging with a major intraracial debate happening in real time. This is the era of Du Bois versus Booker T. Washington. Du Bois is arguing for full civil rights and higher education. Washington, on the other hand, is arguing for industrial education and accommodation within white power structures. The film has characters who represent different positions. There's a preacher named Old Ned who is sycophantant towards white patrons. He performs the version of himself they want to see, and Micheaux treats that attitude with real contempt. Then there's Sylvia. She's committed to education and uplift, but she has to navigate white patronage to do it. When she secures a donation from Elena Warwick, the film doesn't present it simply. Where does the money come from? Who does it ultimately serve? What are the unspoken terms? Micheaux doesn't give you easy answers. This film is in active conversation with Black intellectual tradition. The third theme, womanhood and sexual violence. Let's make it plain. One of the things Within Our Gates does that is genuinely radical for 1920, or frankly for any era, is to put the sexual violence against Black women on the screen as historical and present reality. The Grittlestone assault on Sylvia is not ambiguous. It's the realization that he is her biological father, the product of an earlier assault on her Black mother. It collapses the central mythology white Southerners used to justify lynching. The narrative was always, we're protecting white women from Black men. Micheaux, on the other hand, says, look at what's actually happening. Look at who's actually assaulting whom. Look at the children that violence is producing, because how much more evidence do you need? Ida B. Wells has been documenting this, or had been documenting this in her journalism for decades. Micheaux put the argument on film, and notably, Sylvia survives. She endures, she carries this history in her body, and she continues. And how much of that is just what Black women do even now? There is something deeply important in that refusal to let her be defined only by what was done to her. The fourth theme is censorship. Chicago censors initially refused to allow the film, citing concerns that the lynching sequence would provoke racial unrest. Think about that for just a moment. A film depicting racial violence was rejected because it might upset people who saw the depictions of racial violence. The concern wasn't for black audiences processing their trauma on the screen. The concern was for white comfort. Micheaux fought back. The man was tenacious. He negotiated. He may have made some cuts. We don't know exactly what changed because we don't have the original print of the film. But the film got shown. It played to black audiences across the country. The Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier, they covered this film seriously. So, this is a film that we nearly lost. Of the roughly 44 films that Micheaux made, we have 12. And I don't think I have my. Yes, I do. We have 12. The rest are lost because the films deteriorated. No one with institutional power, and this is the entire collection here, no one with institutional power saw fit to preserve them. Nitrate film, which was used at the time, is fragile. And race films were not prioritized, they weren't considered worthy of archiving. Within Our Gates survived because a Spanish archive preserved a print under a different name. Had someone not cataloged it correctly, we may have never known that this film existed. The film preservation was not a neutral act. What gets saved tells you what a culture values and what it's willing to let disappear. It goes back to that thing we've repeatedly said here, that thing that Walter Mosley says about books, which is if you're not in the story, you're not in the culture. And the fact that we were able to find this film, find 12 of the 44 films, it puts us back into the silent film movie era, and it solidifies us within the American culture of that time as something other than slaves and in servitude to anybody else. The Library of Congress added Within Our Gates to the National Film Registry in 1993. It's now recognized as one of the most significant American films ever made. Think about Micheaux's lineage. What did he get started here? You have Micheaux to the LA Rebellion filmmakers, to Spike Lee, to Julie Dash, to Ryan Coogler, to Ava DuVernay. It's a whole line. The insistence on determination, the refusal to wait for Hollywood to tell your story accurately, the willingness to go directly to your audience and say, this is for us. Micheaux was doing what black filmmakers are still doing today, fighting for the right to depict black life in its full complexity. We're not a monolith. He just had to do it with far fewer resources in a far more hostile environment. Remember, we talked about this last month. You had, Warner Brothers, Fox, Paramount. They were fighting each other to get started, but at a certain point, they fought so that they could get the resources, the films, the cameras, everything, and focus on building their empires. And at a certain point, their infighting became healthy competition. But even in that, even when they were at war with each other and fighting for position to be the Hollywood studio, collectively, they were not including black people. What does this film demand of us now? When you watch Within Our Gates today, you can, and you can. It's in the public domain. This film is more than 100 years old. And I'll make sure that I post the links for you. It demands something from you. The lynching sequence is hard to watch. And, you know, it's not filmed like it would be today, where, you get visuals and close ups of what's happening, but the pace of the film at that point makes it hard to watch, and you find yourself tensing up. I know I did, even though I could see in the filming that maybe they had someone standing on a stool at a certain point. It was no less impactful. He wasn't making art for comfort, he was making art as testimony. But what I found most powerful is not the horror, it's Evelyn Prayer's face. The moments where his camera simply rests on her, lets her think, lets her feel, even though there are no audible words in this film, the actors emoted wonderfully. Those moments are as radical as anything else in the film. He's saying her inner life matters. Her character is worth your attention in 1920 on screen. And when you really think about it, that in itself is a revolutionary act. And knowing what we know now, knowing that she would be gone just 12 years later at 36 years old, there's something very precious about every single film that she's in. Watch her closely. So that's all I have for you today. The film was banned, nearly erased, rediscovered in a foreign archive, and is now exactly where it belongs, at the center of conversation about what American cinema is to be and what it refused to be. Oscar Micheaux didn't ask permission. He raised money from his community, he built his own infrastructure, and he made the films he believed needed to exist. I think I said this in the last episode. He was ahead of his time. And because he was, and because he did, we have a 79-minute survival. This piece of testimony that is still speaking 100 plus years later. If you watch one film after this, make sure it's within our gates. It's on YouTube, it's in the Library of Congress, it's on MGM. You can get it from your local library. You can find this film for free. Give Evelyn Prayer your full attention. Give Oscar Micheaux the engagement that he was fighting for. Really, study his film, study him. As I watched the film, I thought about what he had to do to be a filmmaker. He was a key figure in building the black film industry. Not the only, but the well known figure. I wondered, what would he think of the black film industry today? All right. Well, that's it. Thanks for spending your time with me. Like and follow our Facebook and YouTube page, Movies That Move We, and share this. If it meant something to you, if you got anything out of it, go ahead and share it with someone you know. Until next time, bye.